Living courageously. How many of us would love to be able to do that? How many of us would like to reignite our entire body and our entire system, emotionally, mentally, physically, to be able to really enjoy a life of happiness and peace and freedom? I love the quote from Helen Keller: life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. And I'm really pleased to have a gentleman by the name of Clinton Young on the show today. He is really world-class speaker as well as an international world-class speaker. And he talks about the very things of how to overcome failure and fear and doubt and enable confidence and courage to literally live our dreams now. So I look forward to having you join us on the show.
At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Clinton Young, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, Dr. Doug. It's so great to be here with you.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you, and another man of adventure, and I love that. A few years ago, I was just kind of thinking about what's going on in my life, and it's like, you know what? The one thing I'm really missing is some adventure in my life, and so it became a purposeful thing to do, and so I love it. Here you are. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I know that adventure is really a part of what you're doing. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that a little bit. So tell the audience, give the audience a little bit of history about yourself. I'm always curious, and I find it fascinating to see where people are when I'm interviewing them compared to where they were and what brought them to the point where they're really trying to make a difference in people's lives.
Wow. Well, that's definitely a massive question. I love to dig into that. And I don't want to leave people on too much of a cliffhanger. What Dr. Doug is talking about here around adventure is my wife and I are getting ready to go on a 12 plus month RV and pickleball tour all around the US, renting out our house. Definitely a little bit of a scary experience, but it giving you that up front will lead back to when I share how I've gotten to where I am now. And making a difference in other people's lives. So let's backtrack a little bit. 2008, 2009. Before that, Dr. Doug, I'd always been somebody who followed my intuition. Okay. And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I'm talking more, not conscious reasoning, but that feeling that you get, your intuition, a feeling that you get, you just know that something's right. And this was kind of my model of the world. Like I'd always followed my intuition before I even knew what intuition was, before I was even ever introduced to the world of personal growth and development. So in 2008, I had just become an entrepreneur a few years prior to that. I did the whole college thing, grad school, corporate America, you name it, back to school. I did that whole track. And I find myself in this job that I'm not really loving. I thought it was my dream job, moved all the way out to California from Massachusetts. And I realized it's becoming my dream nightmare. And that's when I became an entrepreneur. So 2005 through 8, I have a lot of successes, First time I ever made six figures. First time I really had control of my time flexibility, talk about adventure, right? Traveling all over the place, really, really loving life. And then, as you know, and many people know who are listening, 2008, there was this massive financial collapse.
Oh, yeah.
And literally, Dr. Doug, in about a month or two, I see my business absolutely crumble. Business just crumbled. Credit destroyed. Lose my properties. This is 6 months after I get married as well.
Oh, my goodness.
Welcome to the team, honey. Welcome to the team. Luckily, she stuck with me. We're still together 13 years later, almost 13 years married. But I find myself in this really, really challenging place where, lots of success to massive, what most people would call failure, an experience of failure. And I find myself walking into this broke down call center. Picture this, where I'm walking this broke down call center. I'm about to make hundreds and hundreds of cold calls to local businesses all around the US, selling high school sports calendar advertisement space in high school sports calendars, making $8 an hour, right? And it's not like that was Not that there's anything wrong with making $8 an hour or that kind of a job. I just felt like at that time in my life, it was a massive step back. And it really was, but it would prove to be a step back that would allow me to propel myself forward. So fast forward about a year and a half, it's 2010 now, and I find myself in a seminar. And I am still lost, Dr. Doug. I had experienced a little bit of momentum in this new role after being unemployed for over a year. But ultimately, I felt shattered. That's the best word I could say. I felt shattered. My confidence was absolutely gone. And I felt like I couldn't trust my intuition anymore. You see, I find myself at this seminar. Picture this, it's like 200 people in the room. Okay. I'm at the microphone just like I am now. I am certainly not leading the presentation like I do these days as a speaker, but I am just there as a participant, and I am lost. I am confused, and I'm standing in front of 200 people. And the seminar leader, his name is Chris, he looks right at me and he says, "Clinton, you are dead inside." And I was just like, ugh, it was like a stake to my heart. But man, he literally was speaking to my soul. Like I was dead inside. You know the gas stoves, we have the pilot lights underneath that are
Right.
always going, right? They're always going, even when you can't see them. They're always going. Well, my proverbial pilot light, I felt like had gone out, or at the very most, it was flickering. And in that moment at the microphone, I realize, at least I think I realize, you'll get the punchline, but I think I realized why I'm so shattered. And it's because I had always followed my intuition. Remember, I said that. And a
Yeah.
few years prior to that, I buy a few properties. I bought a few properties in 2005, 2006. And in that moment, I realized, oh my goodness, I know why I am so shattered. It's because I feel like my intuition failed me, right? Why did my intuition not tell me not to buy those properties, not to get into this business opportunity? Why did this happen? And I think that I've got it all figured out, but it doesn't smooth out after that, okay? And then I find myself a few months later, it's September 2010, and I'm taking a walk in nature. This is one of what I like to call black sheep habits. Black sheep habits, the habits that they're so powerful, but not a lot of people do them because they're afraid they're going to stand away from the herd or look different or look odd, like meditation or visualization. There's a lot of them.
Right.
But this one is taking solo walks in nature by myself and doing what I like to call contemplating, right? Just contemplating. It's kind of like a moving meditation. And I'm walking in the woods, and all of a sudden I just see this. I love beautiful, awe-inspiring nature. It brings about this state of feeling in me, that's tingly feeling that I just find is really, really connective to source, if you will. And so I'm in this beautiful nature, and it hits me. I'm like, oh my goodness, it wasn't my intuition that failed me. It was me that failed my intuition. And that is why I'm so shattered. That's why I'm so broken. That's why I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with myself, right? Because think about it, my intuition had always been there for me, even before I knew what the heck it was. I'd always just have a feeling, I would do it, and it would always work out. It didn't always work out the same exact way I thought it was going to work out, but it always worked out. It was always perfect. Everything's always perfect. I'm a firm believer in that. Even when it doesn't seem like it is, it's always perfect. And so I had trusted my intuition, and I thought my intuition failed, but it was me that actually failed my intuition. I remember thinking back when my intuition was saying, my brain was saying, Clinton, my soul was saying, Clinton, what are you doing? Why are you buying these products? I remembered that, and I chose to disregard it. I chose to disregard it for various reasons. And so my whole mental model of the world, my whole construct of how the world worked, it was just broken. And worse than that, I'm the one that broke it, right? And I'm the one that couldn't even trust myself after that. So, fast forward several years, this was, over a decade ago, but man, in that moment, I realized that not only did I have to reignite my human spirit, that pilot light underneath that stove, but in the subsequent years to follow and the journey of kind of crawling back out of that deep, dark space, I learned so much, and I was able to see so much of what I did wrong and what I've done right in the past. And I've kind of decoded this sort of this success process, if you will, that I talk about sometimes. But what I realized in that process of really putting myself in opportunities to be in service to others inside of my greatest gift and learning more about what lit me up. And this is what ultimately led me to becoming a professional keynote speaker and a coach for speakers, is I realized my purpose was revealed to me along the way. My purpose was revealed to me, and that is to not just reignite my human spirit, but to reignite the human spirit. And
Oh, and I
ultimately,
love,
that's what leads me here today.
yeah, and I love that. And you talk about one thing I find really fascinating. I think it's a question that many people have for themselves, because you talk about intuition, and different people call that different things. Many call it intuition, have a sense about something. There are those that say it's inspiration, all of those types of things. But you share the story of thinking you were following your inspiration, but actually, as you look back, realizing that your intuition was saying, don't do that, when you were thinking, yes, do that. So have you come up with any sense of how one can actually learn what is true intuition
Mm.
and probably what the world is telling them they should be doing, that they're defining as intuition when it's really not?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look, I do have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in psychology, and I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. No, I'm just kidding. And I've been geeking out on neuroscience for the last 15, 20 years, right? So I'm not the foremost expert in the world of psychology and the human condition and what motivates us, but I know more than the average person, right? This is something
Right.
that I'm passionate about. And it's my belief, right? It's my belief that what we need, what there's an opportunity for us to do is to just get really quiet. Because I'm a firm believer that we are all born with this connection to a higher source, whether that be God, whether that be universe, whether that be whatever you want to call it, spirit, doesn't really matter. There's something that is bigger and greater than us. And that's just my belief. Maybe not everybody believes that, but there's something bigger. Doesn't really matter what we call it. And ultimately, there is a connection to that source. And the closer we can make that connection, the sharper, the brighter we can make that connection, the more vibrant we can make that connection, then that is how we get more communication from, I believe, is our intuition. I believe our intuition is not just our brain saying logically go do this. That's not what it is. Brain is involved, right? But it is our spirit, I believe, and our source connecting to us. So how do we get there? I feel like the biggest thing we can do, and it leads back to black sheep habits. I believe what we can do and what there is to do is to get quiet, especially in times like during COVID, with all the crazy stuff that's going on, and anyone that's experienced any sort of failure that ultimately leads, and failure could also be like a loss. It doesn't have to be necessarily a failure,
Right.
some kind of loss, either of a family member, even a pet or a business or whatever, right? Some kind of trauma. You might want to call it trauma, you might not, but failure ultimately and loss ultimately can lead to a feeling of fear and also a feeling of doubt, right? So what can happen, and I'm getting back to your question, what can happen with this failure, fear, and doubt, especially in today's world where there's so much information, there's so much out there saying, do this, what about this, what about this? So much distraction, so much social media, that a lot of times our brains feel like a frying pan with eggs being fried in them sometimes, especially when we experience failure, fear, and doubt. It just exacerbates the whole thing. So what is the opportunity for us is to experience what I like to call, like I said, black sheep habits. And I'm going to give you a process, a series of 4 of them that can help anybody that's in a challenging situation like this, that might feel a little bit lost, might feel a little bit scared or confused or not knowing if it's their intuition or if it's something else. I'm going to give you a process, if that's okay with you. It's a 4 little
Yeah.
things.
And I'd love for you to do that. What impressed me when I went on your website, there was a quote from Helen Keller that I just really love. And, your headline was "Live Courageously." And then underneath, of course, her quote was, "Life is a daring adventure or nothing at all." And, I think there's so many times that people sit back, as you say, they just sit back and go, wow, where am I? And what on earth am I doing? as I shared with you, where I need adventure in my life.
Mhm.
And as you say, it takes courage.
Mhm.
And when you get into this concept of a sense of failure, which I think in many cases goes back, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, of these beliefs that have been embedded within our mind,
Mm.
that I'm not good enough, that
Yeah.
type of situation, which is continual failure subconsciously in our lives. And then I
Mm.
love how you talk about fear or doubt, but those are the things that literally block us from
Yeah.
living courageously and having an adventure in life. And, adventure isn't like you're heading out for a year. I mean, that's great. And, we all have different things, but I think anyone can uplift their life a bit and
Mm.
start to experience what they would consider adventure. So yes, I'd love for you now to talk about those four, is it four success
Yeah, it's
steps?
success principles that can allow you to dig yourself out of any hole that you're in my
Okay.
experience, and get
Let's talk
clarity.
about let's talk about each of those principles one at a time.
Okay, let's do that. And one thing I want to share based on what you just said is, where a lot of people are right now, I find that there's two main types of people. There's people that believe anything's possible, which is great. And then there's people that believe that nothing's possible, right? And I like to say maybe run from them if you can. I'm assuming that everybody that watches and listens to your shows are the people that believe anything's possible.
Right.
But even the people that believe anything's possible, we're not perfect, right? There's things that we're challenged by. Tony Robbins has limiting beliefs. Everybody has limiting belief that we deal with. The people that have had more success and fulfillment and happiness in life generally have figured out a way to move through them faster, right? It doesn't mean they go away completely. We're just able to move through them faster.
Right.
So the people that believe anything's possible, we find ourselves typically in one of three places. We either A, don't know what the heck we want, right? And there's a lot of people out there I know that are listening to this that are like, I know I'm bound for greatness. I know I'm meant to do something bigger and greater in my life. I just don't know what the heck it even is. And a lot of times we can be in this state of kind of confusion, if you will, if we've experienced any challenges, like I said. Now, the second state that we can be in a lot of times, and a lot of times we'll experience all three of these, is now we know what we want, but we don't know how to get it. We just don't know how to get it. We just need coaching. We need guidance. We need to talk to people like Dr. Doug or maybe some of his guests that have specialties in the area that are important to you that you want to grow in. You just need to find out how to do it. Get some guidance, get some coaching. And the third place that we find ourselves in is, even though we believe that anything's possible, right? We know what we want. We even know how to get it, but we don't believe that we can either A, do it, or that we deserve it, right? And that is something I just realized, that my microphone probably sounds a lot better right now. I just turned on the microphone. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. Well, you're sounding pretty good in the first place.
Okay, good. Well, now I'm going to sound better. So we find ourselves in one of those three places, and no matter where we're at, right, that third place of not believing that we deserve it or that it's possible for us, that's near and dear to my heart, because I spent a lot of time in that place in back in the day, and I know a
Right.
lot of us probably have. So there's four things we can do right now that no matter where we're at, it can help give us more clarity, more peace in our mind, more empowerment, and more excitement and inspiration to go and get what it is that we want in our lives. So I'm going to go through those right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I stop you before you do?
Please,
Because
please,
you
please.
said something about the sense of confusion, that you don't even know what you want to accomplish in life. And I think so often, I mean, I experienced this personally, as I started going through that process myself, the first thing I'm thinking about is, oh, I just want to touch millions of lives. I just want to do this. And I think so often that tends to be the thought process, is I've just got to get there and do it big.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we forget that, you know what, just do it.
Mm.
And don't worry about big or small, because even doing it, and I don't like the word small, but I go back to the story
Yeah.
that I've used many times about the little boy with the starfish,
Yeah.
and he's out there throwing them out, and the guy comes up to him and says, what in the heck are you doing, kid? Look at all the thousands of starfish. You're not going to be able to accomplish anything here. And then he picks up one, throws it back in the sea, and said, I just did for that one. And I think sometimes it's important to understand, at least that's what I've kind of come to a conclusion, that it only takes one. It only takes doing something for one person and lifting the life of one person. And we have, in fact, accomplished our purpose. And as we
Yeah,
continue to just think it from that process, it works really well. So anyway, sorry about the
100%.
interruption,
No,
but
that's great.
let's go with that.
That's great. You're right. And everybody's adventure isn't the same. Like not everybody wants to rent out their house and go live in an RV for a year, right? But you might have a different type of courageous adventure. It might be an internal
Yeah.
courageous adventure. It might be something in your local community. And I find that a lot of people are looking for their purpose. And come back to me on that. I want to talk about purpose when we're done with these.
Okay, definitely.
Habits. So what we can do right out of the gate to get more clarity, and this isn't rocket science, by the way, folks, and quite honestly, principles are so powerful, but oftentimes misunderstood and treated not with enough respect, if you will, principles. And there's this great quote by, I believe it was Lao Tzu, or a lot of people have attributed it to themselves. I don't know exactly who made it up, but it says, to know and not to do is not to know, right? And it speaks to the power of principles and the simplicity of principles and how we can sometimes disregard them because they're so simple, right? So to know and not to actually do is really not to know. So if you say, when I say these, you're like, oh, I know that, check yourself. Because if you're not doing them regularly, you really don't know it. You don't know it to the level or the level of awareness that you could, where they're actually going to be impactful for you. So the first one is to simply meditate. We have to quiet our mind. Right. And for some people sitting there, if you don't know what meditation is, literally there's so many ways to do it, but you can just close your eyes, focus on your breath, and try to release any thought that comes to your mind. Just say, thank you for sharing, and just let it go. And just try to go back to like that sort of blackness that you can see, or whiteness, whatever color you want to see when you close your eyes. That's just one simple way. Some people don't like sitting there and they get antsy. So you can meditate. A lot of people can get in a meditative state when they're cycling or when they're running. You can get at this endorphin high. Right? You can do it in different ways. You could probably even do it when you're doing something you really love, like art or music. So there are other ways if you don't see yourself sitting there and closing your eyes. But I'm telling you, when you can get to that place, even if it's like 8 minutes a day, it'll make a massive difference, because what happens is it creates a gap between your conscious thinking and the actions that you actually take, and you get more power to choose your actions. We could talk about meditation for a whole day.
Yeah.
That just quiets your mind. We want to quiet the monkey mind and if you're visualizing this and you see like dust particles all over the place, you just want to let all those dust particles settle down to the bottom and get all down to the bottom. So now you can see more clearly. So that's what meditation does, as an analogy for your mind, right? We're going to settle the mind. And again, it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just get clarity and no thoughts I've been meditating for years, and I still close my eyes and sometimes I can't stop thinking about what I need to do later on that day. Just keep doing it as a practice. Number two, once we do that, now what we want to do is we want to go out and we want to contemplate, take those walks in nature. Okay, so number one was meditation. Number two is contemplation. Okay, take solo walks in nature. Allow yourself to be in a state of awe. Go see something beautiful, a waterfall, or when, I used to live on the East Coast in Massachusetts where there'd be thunderstorms. I go out on the porch and just sit there and watch. It's just so amazing when you really put yourself in this, that we're this little tiny speck on this giant ball hurling through the universe, at whatever miles an hour, spinning around. How are we not falling off? Like, I don't understand. It's a circle. It's just put yourself in a state of awe, right? You can do that real easily by just going out in nature. And when you contemplate, if you think about it, after you meditate, you've settled the mind. Now you're out contemplating. And when you're in nature, it connects you to source. It connects you to source. Whether you believe me right now, or whether you know what I'm talking about or not, just try it on. It connects you to source. So if you think about quieting the mind, then you get connected to source, all of a sudden you get communications. And things will bubble up from that dust that settled. The important things will start to bubble back up, almost like a little bud is poking through the ground, right? And you get this little bud of an idea. That's what happens when you contemplate, especially after you meditate. So you're settling the mind with meditation and then contemplating. It's almost like you're tilling the soil, right? And then you're fertilizing it, and all of a sudden something pops up. Doesn't always happen, but it will happen if you do this as a practice, right? As a practice. The biggest challenge with habits is that people don't do them. consistently, right? Habits are not sexy, but they are the key to success. Okay. So ultimately, that's the first two. Number three is when we get home, after we contemplate, we've got to write these things down. We've got to journal, right? I used to think journaling was, not a cool thing to do, but journaling is amazing. And it's not like you're journaling to write the next, New York Times bestseller. Maybe you will. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll create something out of it that you can make a difference in someone else's life. But even if you're just getting it out of your brain onto paper, what's going to happen is when you start to journal, is you're going to start to see patterns. You're going to start to see things that are more and more meaningful. And by the way, when you get these meaningful things that pop up for you in your contemplation, trust me, they are very slippery. They're very slippery. Our brains are still operating back from a physiology of thinking that we're getting chased by saber-toothed tigers. So any opportunity that arises can a lot of times be misdiagnosed as danger instead of just fear, right? Our little brain doesn't really love us to expand and grow because it can be scary and it might see it as danger, but it's really not danger, it's just fear. So you got to write those down because your brain likely will not hold on to them for very long. So write them down. So that's why journaling is so powerful. Another great practice in the morning is just free writing, especially any writers out there. Even if you're not a writer, just get up in the morning and journal, and just literally you could write down, I am writing on a white piece of paper right now. And you literally just write, don't think at all, and just write. You learn this in different journaling workshops if you ever go to any. If you just write, eventually you'll say something meaningful. And you'll get on a little thread and you'll just get going. And then you'll be like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say now. And you write down that. And then you just keep going for about 5 or 10 minutes, or even if you did it for a minute or two to start. What you'll see is there are patterns. There are patterns. I'm telling you, there are patterns that will reveal themselves that will give you ideas of what it is that you want. Okay. There's so many other things that we can do then once we start to get ideas that maybe don't necessarily fit inside of black sheep habits, but you definitely want to go and find other people that are doing the things that you see yourself doing, and surround yourself with a network, up-level your network with other people that are on the same path as you. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to think differently. You're going to start to see new opportunities. You're going to start to create new relationships, and opportunities are going to arise. Okay. And once you get clear about what it is that you want, now we do the granddaddy or grandmommy of them all of black sheep habits. And this black sheep habit I'm about to share, it's not you probably have all heard of it. Maybe a few of you haven't, but it's something that literally the top fighter pilots on the planet do this, top CEOs, top entrepreneurs, top athletes, world-class Olympic athletes, they all do this religiously. And it's called visualization. Visualization. We need to visualize and not only see it with bright, vivid colors in our mind, what it is that we want, we actually need to feel it as well. We need to feel what it's going to feel like when we actually have that thing. And when we do that, we don't have time right now to go into all the science behind what's happening here, right? A lot of people hear of the law of attraction and they just hear kind of the foofy side of it. They don't actually get down to the quantum physics side of it. But there's actually things that are occurring there from a vibrational state that allow you to attract things into your life. If you don't like that story, which there is science around that whole side of it, just come back to the fact that when you're visualizing, you're priming your brain for success. If you think about Michael Phelps, and I'll end on this and bring it back to you, Dr. Doug. Michael Phelps, he is the foremost, most prolific, most decorated Olympian of all time. The guy has 28 medals, 23 of them are gold medals. He's a swimmer, right? And he says he used to work out before the Olympics, literally 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 8 hours a day in the pool. And he would say in interviews publicly that visualization is his secret weapon. Even with all that working out, visualization was his secret weapon. And he tells a story in a Forbes article. He does it in a video. I actually share this in some of my presentations. He says in a 200-meter, I'm not a swimmer, so I don't know the exact distances, but in a 200-meter butterfly, which is like one of the hardest swims,
Right.
in one of his most, I think his last Olympics appearance that he was in, he literally one lap out of, I believe it was eight back and forth. He was in like halfway through one of his laps. His goggles filled up with chlorinated water. He couldn't see anything. He swam more than 3/4 of that 200-meter butterfly race blind. He not only won gold, but he set a world record. because he primed his brain for success. That was not the first time his brain raced that race. His brain had raced that race hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And every single time he won in his brain, in his visualization, and he felt the feeling of what it would feel like winning that gold medal. And that, my friends, visualization, if you just take that one thing out of this whole conversation and go research that and do that, that one thing can change your life.
Well, and you've said a couple of things I really want to get to.
Yeah.
Number one, visualization. Michael Phelps also did a lot of work to achieve what he visualized. And I think that's
100%.
important to understand. But you made an interesting comment, the difference between feeling it in your mind, seeing it in your mind, and feeling it in your heart. And, you know, I think that is such a key thing. So many times we want to visualize what we want to accomplish and so on and so forth, but we really don't own it. And I guess the question is, how does one take what they see visually in their mind and put it into their heart so that truly we own it?
That's a beautiful question, and it leads perfectly into what I wanted to share about. So how do we go from our head really to our heart, right?
Yes.
With this, and really own that visualization and that vision. First thing I want to say is, if anyone ever has a vision and they feel really excited about it, how many of you out there have had this vision, or even if you didn't see it, but you have this feeling or this idea, and then 5 minutes later, you're like, I probably can't do that. Or maybe it's a week later, maybe if it's even a year later, like, I don't know if I can do that, right? Again, our brains go to work to literally annihilate anything that occurs like danger. There's an amazing TED Talk called I think it's the 5-second rule. And it's not about food falling on the floor, fellas. All right. The 5-second rule states that if you don't take action upon an idea within the first 5 seconds, your brain will literally go to work to annihilate that idea as a bad idea. And eventually you'll be like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't raise my hand. Well, it's a good thing. Yeah. You like rationalize it, right? You have to take action within 5 seconds. Tony Robbins says, never leave the sight of an idea without taking the first action. Never, ever, ever, because your brain will go to work to take it out. So how do we go from our head to our heart? First things first is we need to know, I believe it was Napoleon Hill, I believe, that said this, either that or one of his mentors, said that it would be, I'm going to paraphrase this and add in some extra words. It would be a cruel joke on humanity, Dr. Doug, if we had the ability to see something in our mind's eye and not actually have the potential to achieve it. It would be a cruel joke on humanity if that's how the world worked, if that's how humanity worked. So the bottom line is on that, underscore with a highlighter, if you can see it in your eye, if you can see it in your mind's eye, then it's already yours. You can have it. There's obviously work that needs to happen. There's mindset work. There's actual action. There's conversations. There's things that need to happen. Maybe money that needs to get invested. But there's definitely your ability to achieve it. So how do we go from that idea in our mind down into our heart and really own it? That's what Dr. Doug is asking us to talk about right now. So let's talk about that. How do we do that? Well, first things first. I love it. One of my favorite movies of all time, The Matrix, Morpheus. He says that we are all prisoners of our own mind. We are all prisoners of our own mind. What I believe he's talking about is our limiting beliefs, right? He's talking about our limiting beliefs. So how do we eliminate, or first of all, how do we move through limiting beliefs? Because I'm asserting right now, by the way, that your limiting beliefs is the reason that keeps you in your head and not bringing that down into your heart so that you can actually achieve it. Okay. And ultimately, what we need to do, there's a few things. First thing is we need to start to discover what our limiting beliefs are. We need to embrace the idea that, wait a minute, my beliefs, and I'm going to take a step back here and just talk really anecdotally so that I can understand how to explain this and everybody can understand it really easily. We all have this sort of little kid confidence when we're born, this little kid confidence. And there's actually an amazing movie. It's kind of a crude movie, but the actor's kind of crude, Amy Schumer, but it's called, what is it called? I Feel Pretty. Such a good movie. It has such a great point. And it illustrates this idea of little girl confidence. And I'm kind of extrapolating on that and adding on what I know about the human condition. So let's just picture this little boy in a restaurant, right? And all of a sudden he just gets out of his booth and he straps on these wings, these fake wings, and he's like, bah! And he's flying around the whole restaurant like he owns the joint, like he's a plane. He's the epitome of a plane. This is little kid confidence, right? Speaking of aircraft, I was traveling on a speaking engagement a couple of years ago, and this little girl on the plane, she just starts belting out a song. Like I'm talking like volume 10, belting it out, and it was not good. She needed to put in some more hours, okay, to get the right sound going. She was like the next American Idol. She thought she was, right? Absolute 1000% confidence. It's my belief that we're all born with this level of confidence. And then something happens. Something happens. It happens to all of us. It's a different occurrence for everybody. It's a different age for everybody, but it's usually before the age of 8. Certain things happen. It could be a traumatic event, or it could be just a basic, normal thing. And what happens is our brain misclassifies or misdiagnoses and then organizes that thought back in our subconscious brain, and it makes it mean something. Okay. A lot of times it makes it mean the right thing, right? It makes it mean, oh, wait, stoves are hot sometimes. So it files it away. And this is literally, I'm giving a totally anecdotal way of how our brain works so that we don't go bananas. We literally are bombarded with billions and billions of bits of information every single day. Our brains cannot take all of that. So we categorize things so as to be efficient and be able to survive. So we categorize things with meaning so that we don't have to process from 0 to get up to what it actually means every single time. We're just like, oh, that's file number A. Oh, that's file number 126. Right? That means that's hot. So you follow me, right?
Right.
So this is how our brain ultimately creates meaning of the world. Well, what happens when we're little kids is sometimes something will happen and we'll misfile. We'll misfile something that happened into a meaning of the world's not safe. I'm not good enough. It's not fair. Right? And these are very common. This is the birthplace or the genesis of our limiting beliefs. And if left unchecked, what happens, Dr. Doug, and this illustrates what you were talking about earlier, it gives us this sort of lens. If you think about glasses, right? We all have a set of glasses on, and they all have a certain color or a filter, if you will. And our glasses determine what it is that we can see out in the world. Out of all those billions of bits of information, our filter is our beliefs, and some of them are limiting, and it allows us to only see the things that we believe are actually there. I know that's a little crazy. It's a little bananas. If you're new to science,
No, it is so true.
You get it. You get what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
Some of the listeners might be on the precipice of personal growth and development and might be like, let me diagnose that a little more, but just hang with us here. Hang with us. That lens becomes the lens through which we see the entire world, through which we see ourselves, what's possible, our relationships, what things mean, right? And if left unchecked, this happens, right, with the people out there that maybe aren't yet awakened to the world of personal growth and development. That runs their life and they don't even know it. And again, not that once we know it, not that they go away. The limiting beliefs don't necessarily go away 100%. You can dissolve some of them, but ultimately we create ways to move through them fast and realize, oh wait, that's just a belief. That's not actually true. This is the truth over here, right? So ultimately, going back to your question, which is how do we actually go from an idea that is in our brain down to our heart so that we can move and actually achieve that vision? Well, one of the things that we can do is we need to understand what our limiting beliefs are. So listen to our language. If we're writing things down, write down L, M, and N. L, N, and M, sorry, L, N, M. So first thing, we need to listen to our language because the words coming out of our mouth are going to give us a lot of clues, especially when we're upset, we're angry, we stub our toe, et cetera, et cetera. Number two, we need to up level our network. N is for network. We need to up level our network. Find people. If we want to be a world-class athlete, we want to be a triathlon, who should we hang out with? Probably people that are at least exercising, right? But even better, triathletes. Up level your network. Find people that are on the same path as you. And then number three is M for mentor. We've got to find mentors. We've got to find people that are not 5, 10, 15 steps ahead of us. We've got to find people that are 5,000 steps ahead of us. And we need to model them, right? Go where they go, be as they be, do as they do, read what they read, and eventually you'll have what they have, right? If you put in enough work and you raise your belief up enough. In school, they call that cheating, copying. In the real world, they call it being smart. Model those who have what it is that you want. And just a side caveat, so I know this is about 1% of people out there like, well, yeah, but what about, yeah. Well, if I'm not saying model them in every area of their life. They might be an alcoholic, but they're an amazing triathlete. I don't mean model them in everything they do. Model them in the area of life that they've achieved success and mastery in, that's important to you. Model them in that area of their life. And you will.
Well, and yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I love what you talk about as far as the environment. I am a firm believer in we are who we hang out with. And I think there's a statement that we are the sum total of the average of the 5 people that we hang around with. And oftentimes as I'm working with people, and you know, they're experiencing really a poor culture in their business or in their family, it's like, all right, let's take a look at what's going on here. And a lot of times it has to do with that outside environment that they tend to kind of hang with and listen to and so on and so forth, which is literally creating the very issues that they're trying to overcome.
Yeah, we're products of the books we read and the people we hang out with, period. That's just a fact, 100%.
Well, I love that. And so head to heart, I want to accomplish this thing. I need to get it into my heart. And what you're saying is we need to be able to really just kind of explain one more time. How do we go from the head to the heart so people can really get it just in a few cents?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I could speak about that go from the head to the heart. One thing that people come to me and ask all the time, they say, how do I find my purpose? How do I find my purpose? And again, I get the good fortune of being able to speak all around the world as a keynote speaker on courage, and then a coach for speakers. And I tell them, and it kind of shocks them, I say, if you're looking for your purpose, stop. It will be waiting for you when you start doing the things that you love. If you're looking for your purpose, stop. It'll be revealed to you along the way when you start doing the things that you love. And we could talk all day about this other concept called flow. It's our path of least resistance. Right? We all need to find our flow. We need to find what is that path of least resistance. I don't mean the easy button. I mean, there's a certain thing in the world, whether it be our careers or our relationships or our hobbies, and you can find flow in all 3 of those. We need to find that thing that gives us life, right? That thing that when you do it, time flies by. And I don't even necessarily mean passion. I don't mean strength either, right? The beautiful thing about this, there's a certain flow profile. It's like an assessment for yourself. It's called the flow profile. And it ultimately is the intersection between what it is that you do really well and what lights you up. And that's when you know you're in the flow, because it actually gives you life and it gives you energy. It doesn't take energy from you. You can do it all day long, and you're providing value to the marketplace. And I like to say to everybody, I believe that we all have actually the same purpose. I know that's a little bananas to say, but I believe we all have the same purpose. Everybody has their own wrapper, right? They all have their own little wrapper of it, but ultimately we have the same purpose. And that, I believe, is to be in service to other people inside of our greatest gift, though, inside of our greatest gift, inside of our flow. So our job and our opportunity to go from our head to our heart is to find out what is your flow, what lights you up, what excites you, right? And then find ways where you can be of greatest value to the most number of people, even if that's 5 people. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a world changer. We're not looking for the next Gandhi necessarily, right? You don't have to have purpose or you don't have to be the next Gandhi just to have purpose. You can have purpose and be a great father or a great son or a great mother, right? Or whatever, a great teacher. You don't have to be this big person that's on stages all around the world or has a big podcast like you do, but you can still have purpose and have meaning and make a difference to other people. Find the way that you can do that actually lights you up. That's like the combination of the intersection of your skill set where you're so great at it and you love it. It gives you life. Oh my goodness. And you don't have to seek out the purpose in that. Go do the things. And I'll leave you with this. When I was in that downward spiral, that really low place, I would find things that gave me energy and things that didn't take it, that took energy. And I'd stop doing the things that took energy as much as possible. Sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do, but for the most part, get rid of those, outsource those, et cetera, if you have a business, and find ways to be in service to others inside of my greatest gift, even if it has nothing to do with making money. So what I do, I volunteered at my spiritual center so I could be a host. I knew that I would like to speak. I knew it was easy for me. I knew that was the intersection of something I was really great at, and it actually gave me life. Like right now, I'm speaking a million miles a minute because I'm excited. I love this stuff. I can do this all day long. And some people do this and they don't like it. So do something else that doesn't
Right.
deplete you, but actually gives you life. And as you do more and more of those things, even volunteering at my spiritual center, for that one example, right, or doing things that put me out in front of people because I knew that put me in my flow, that raises your vibration. And again, we're not going to get into quantum physics right now, but ultimately when you raise your vibration, you tend to attract things that vibrate at the same vibration. I know for some people that might be a little out there, but that is just the truth. It's truth of science if you research it, right? And beyond that, it just puts you in a happy state, and you'll start to connect with divine intelligence. You'll start to see more and more opportunities because your lens changes, your glasses
Well,
change.
and you know what? I love that example. In fact, it reminds me, I was out walking with my daughter the other day, and I live, as I had shared with you earlier, I live in a valley that is just, can be really beautiful. So we were walking along a little trail around the neighborhood, and we were looking out over the reservoir and the mountains on the opposite side. And as we were walking, I said, all right, look at this picture here. And she looked at it. I said, all right, now I want you to take my sunglasses and look at it through the lenses of my sunglasses. And she put on my sunglasses, and it was like, wow, what a difference. And of course, the reason for that is that sunglasses sometimes kind of block out all that really bright, shiny sun, and you get a contrast where you can really see everything that's going on. So I love the fact that you talk about we can choose the lens through which we see the world and we see our lives. And I think that ultimately that is such an important message for people to understand. And yes, you have hit on so many of those things of how they can literally create a lens that gives them the greatest amount of sense of joy and love and happiness and freedom in their lives. And as we get now to the end of the show, I'd love for you to share with the audience, you know, how they can reach you, how they can kind of learn a little bit more about you and about the philosophies that you have, because you've shared some wonderful things today.
Thank you, Dr. Doug. Yeah, there's a few ways people can stay in touch with me or get connected with me. As I mentioned earlier on, my big vision, and I didn't say that my keynote speech is called Reigniting Your Human Spirit. And it talks about how it takes courage to live your dream life now. And I'm being a working example of my message to the world. My vision of living my dream life now is living in an RV. That might not be your vision, but I challenge you to have the courage to go out and do whatever your vision is. So they can follow me and my wife as we get ready to embark on our tour at Club Freedom Live. That is, if they just go to clubfreedom.org, it'll take them right to my Facebook page.
Okay.
But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Club Freedom Live. That's a great way to just, if you really want to connect with me, Instagram is a super easy way to literally, you can send me like messages, like directly without even being connected. So that's a great way. But I know that a lot of people, some people that are watching this, you may actually have a group where you want me to come and speak for your group. Well, go to clintonyoung.com and get connected with me there. And I know there is a very small percentage of people likely listening to this, but perhaps there are some people out there that I want to share. If you've enjoyed how I've shared my stories and how I've communicated today, this is what I do, right? I'm a professional speaker and I love this. And I actually love, my vision is to co-create with other amazing speakers out there, to co-create a world, a global tipping point in our world of possibility consciousness. And my mission is to arm and equip 1,000+ purpose-driven entrepreneurs with the ability to speak at a world-class level. Even if you don't want to be the next Les Brown or Lisa Sass or Tony Robbins or whatever, but you just want to have the ability to inspire action, I'm going to give you actually my top 7 world-class speaker secrets, okay? These are distilled down from me being on thousands of hours on stages all around the world and hiring some of the very best speakers on the planet to be my mentors and my coaches. And I want to give those top 7 to everybody right now. Okay, Dr. Dex, I'm going to give that to your group right now.
So are you going to give us a link that they can follow to get to that? If you'll give us the link, right? Let's do that.
He'll probably put these in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I will. I'll put them in the show notes.
For the For the world-class speaker secrets, you can go to worldclassspeakersecrets.com. Pretty creative, right? Worldclassspeakersecrets.com, and you can get those literally for free. There's actually a bonus 8th one in there as well. So there's actually my top 8. And for those of you who are really, really excited about really growing as a speaker, and you want to have a conversation with me about possibly working with me, you'll find a way to do that on the thank you page as well. But everybody should just grab those secrets for now, because what's his name? Warren Buffett, one of the most successful people on the planet. He says that public speaking is the #1 skill that everybody should learn in today's day and age. Everybody should learn, even if you're not going to become a famous speaker. Having that ability is massive.
Absolutely. Well, Clinton, this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I just want to leave everyone with this last six-word story. I'm huge on storytelling. Remember to always think big, say yes, and take action. Think big, say yes, and take action.
Amen. And folks, thanks for listening. I know you enjoyed this one, and get a hold of that link and get some more information. Appreciate you listening today, and we look forward to having you join us again soon.
Thank you, Doug.